Before we start, I want to thank you for tuning in. If you're enjoying this content and would like to stay up to date with new episodes, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and turn the notifications button on. And if you'd like to support this content, then I would appreciate a review or comment if you're listening to this on a podcast platform. Enjoy.
And in my opinion, there isn't anything wrong with that. Everyone should feel free to express themselves the way they want on these platforms. Different people have different reasons for what they want to show and why they want to show it. I think where this whole situation needs to be assessed or requires an intervention is if you looking at those pictures or you scrolling through social media and being deeply sucked into that world of comparing yourselves to other people, when that affects your life negatively, when you start feeling bad about yourself or feeling like you are never good enough in comparison to the outside world and what you see on these platforms, that's where this becomes an issue.
Welcome to a new season of the One Day Podcast. I'm your host, Omar Almajali, and each week I'm here to discuss powerful concepts around business, mindset, or life, and often share the stage with some of the brightest and most interesting minds of the Middle East to help me do so. Happy to have you here. Enjoy this one.
Welcome to another episode of the One Day Podcast. The other day I was sitting with a friend and they were scrolling through their Instagram, and then abruptly they got stressed out and said something along the lines of, I look at everyone else and what everyone else is doing and I feel like crap and shit about where I am in life. So one huge topic I wanted to cover during this episode is this whole phenomena of comparing ourselves to others, which has become extreme in recent years with the rise of social media platforms. And it has also become excessive with younger generations. It's becoming a norm and it's becoming part of their identity to compare themselves to other people, which is very, very dangerous, especially for those children who are developing their identity and defining who they are at young years. They need to be safeguarded against some of those things. اليوم عشان ما في أسهل منها إنه الواحد يفتح صفحة إنستغرام وفجأة هيك يغوص بعالم حدا تاني. You go on Instagram and see these people living these lavish lifestyles, traveling the world, or maybe showing off a public display of their love. And in my opinion, there isn't anything wrong with that. Everyone should feel free to express themselves the way they want on these platforms. Different people have different reasons for what they want to show and why they want to show it. I think where this whole situation needs to be assessed or requires an intervention is if you looking at those pictures or you scrolling through social media and being deeply sucked into that world of comparing yourselves to other people, when that affects your life negatively, when you start feeling bad about yourself or feeling like you are never good enough in comparison to the outside world and what you see on these platforms, that's where this becomes an issue. And the reality is, it's really hard to be on social media and not compare yourselves to other people. We're always looking at other people and we're saying, your body isn't good enough. Your fashion style isn't trendy enough. And you're not traveling enough. You have the shittiest job amongst all your friends. And these things just make you feel not enough about yourself. من غير هالواسطة, we are hard on ourselves and we tend to be our own worst self-critics. Add to that the content world that we are surrounded with. In a split of a second, we can enter someone's profile and that would be a window that gives us a peek into that person's world. So there's a lot out there that we could compare ourselves to, and it's a recipe for disaster if we don't do something about it. So as soon as there's this negative association with you comparing yourself with others, I would invite you to be conscious of that fact and do something about it. Because this excessive and unhealthy way of comparing ourselves to other people can have a negative impact on our mental health. It's actually been scientifically proven that negative self-comparison due to social media can make us more anxious. It can also be the reason for higher rates of anxiety and depression. And it's so easy for us to get sucked into this world of why not me? Why can't I have that? Why can't I be that? And there isn't any reason for us to be reaching those levels. And by the way, some of that comparison could happen at a conscious level, and a lot of that comparison happens at a subconscious level, and it affects you without you even realizing that it's actually affecting you. Let's be clear about one thing before we further explore this topic. And that is, there's a big difference between good comparison and bad comparison. And before we even discuss the difference between good comparison and bad comparison, it's worth acknowledging and noting that comparing yourself to others as an exercise, that's something that you can't necessarily stop, because your brain is designed to operate this way. There is a biological reason for that. Our brain does it to figure out how do we measure up against our surroundings and against people in our environment. It's one of the most basic ways we develop an understanding of who we are, what we're good at, what we're not good at. And most of that time, this brain calculation is happening in a split of a second in the background, and we don't even realize it. So it's a brain function that is meant to help us survive by bettering ourselves. So don't feel bad about yourself if you find yourself comparing yourselves to a lot of things and people, because that is something that you are biologically designed to do. But if you are doing it excessively, then you need to do something about it. And as mentioned briefly previously, comparison isn't always bad. It could actually be an enabler for growth. When you compare yourself against someone or some target, you're basically setting a baseline for where you are in life and where you want to be. And it could be a valuable information for self-improvement. For example, if you know that a colleague is better than you at a certain task, it can motivate you to want to learn from them, or basically learn that skill so that you can do better next time, so you can be more of a team player. And there are certain areas of life that I tend to compare myself with other people. And for example, this podcast, I'm always looking at content creators out there to get ideas, be inspired, see how I could improve on this platform in terms of messaging, content, branding. And it gives me an idea of all the possible things that I can essentially accomplish. However, if you're someone who finds themselves comparing to others in unhealthy ways, then the following few tips might help you. Again, I'm no expert on this theme, and all I'm here to do is share some of the things that have helped me overcome those negative comparisons. Obviously, I'm still work in progress. I'm still working on this, but that's just my thought around it. Number one, I do not get annoyed by people's social media because I just know that half of it is bullshit. One thing that people are aware of, but they often ignore, is that the fact that when you look at social media, you are looking at the propaganda version of these people, meaning you are looking at the version of that person that they are willing to portray to the outside world. And it could be so different from their actual reality. Because in reality, you absolutely have no clue what it took for this person to get where they got, to get to that level, and you have no clue what kind of headspace this person is in. Posting a picture with the biggest smile on social media could just be a front for being depressed and miserable. That model who posted a picture of her having breakfast with her boyfriend in the Maldives could in reality be trapped in a very toxic relationship. And maybe not. Who knows? And who are we to judge, and who are we to compare ourselves with an inauthentic version of these people? The point I am making is that when you do those superficial comparisons on social media, then you're not comparing yourself human to human. You are comparing yourself to a super refined, edited version of that human. And unless you live in the brains of these people and know all about their internal engineering, you can read the thoughts they have when they first wake up and the last thing they think about before they go to bed, then you have no business in comparing yourselves to them. And just on that, maybe another point is you can be anything, but you can't be everything. When you compare yourselves to others, we're often comparing the best feature of other people with our average feature. And that's a big reality check. And that's an unfair comparison. Thirdly, what I started doing is I honestly celebrate people's successes, not to be cliche and not to sound like I'm a good human, but actually I look at other people's successes and it inspires me. It shows me all the different things that I could accomplish and all the different things that I can be. And listen, there's a lot of abundance in the world. There's a lot of success and happiness in the world that's enough for every single human. So you shouldn't feel that someone else's success is taking from yours. Plus, that's always good karma to just put positive energy out there. A fourth relevant point, I tend to not compete with others, but I'm always in fierce competition with myself. I tend to push myself in several areas of my life where I feel like I am lacking. Sometimes I do it in unhealthy ways, and we can talk about that in a different podcast. But I'm always looking at myself and how I can improve myself and how I can compete with myself and better myself. And that's if if you do that self-reflection in healthy ways, then that could be a helpful tool to help you improve. Fifth point, if social media is causing you so much anxiety, then why are you on it? Limit your social media engagement. Do something about it. Either unfollow accounts that make you feel bad about yourself, go on a social media diet, and that's something that I started doing. I set timers actually when I'm scrolling through Instagram so that I don't get sucked into a dark hole. I mean, I do that when I'm working. I don't do that on a daily. Maybe take a break from social media and Instagram and come back to it. Lastly, always remember that there is one thing that you're better at than other people, and that's being you. This is the only game that you can really, really win at. Focus on that, stay in your lane as much as possible, and keep striving to improve you and to better you. Quick conclusion before we end this topic. Comparisons are a normal part of the human experience. It's one big function of the brain that helps us benchmark ourselves against other people so that we could look for tools and ways to improve ourselves. This process gives our brain data on what we want, where we want to be, and it could be a positive feedback loop. However, if comparing ourselves to others becomes a compulsive habit and it's being done unconsciously, it can cause us a lot of psychological pain. And if you notice yourself reaching to that point, then do something about it. This is it for today, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments on YouTube or Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and support this content if you like it.
Hope you enjoyed this episode and that you were able to pick up a thing or two that could help you on your journey of growth. If you would like to hear more conversations like these, please do subscribe on YouTube or through your preferred podcast platform. You can also follow more content and get in touch with me on Instagram at oneday.thepodcast. Till next time.